are yours, kid.
From who?
Oh, the gift? That looks like something from a funeral, though. Somebody passed?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Oh, she's so disgusting. It's from Marge.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss The Real Housewives of New Jersey, Season 14, Episode 12. And before we get started, let me just tell you right now that whether or not you like Margaret Josephs, you cannot deny the fact that all season long, Miss Mamas has been eating. The way I was gagged when those funeral flowers showed up at Teresa's doorstep, I said, come through. Come the F through. Margaret did that. That was flawlessly executed, and anybody saying otherwise is lying. Again, this is a Margaret Joseph Stan account over here, and I acknowledge that not all of y'all feel the same way about Margaret, but you won't sit up here and lie to me or yourself and say that she didn't eat that entire stunt, because that was perfect. Put that up there in one of the top 10 Housewives moments of all time, because again, I was sitting there screaming, and Teresa was trying to act like she was so unbothered, but she was very much bothered and pressed because Margaret definitely had her shook. And Miss Teresa, let me just let you know something. Those receipts were a complete flop. You wasted everybody's time, including our time, bringing your lawyer there to let them know what's happening and how Margaret's been in communication with Louie's ex. Let's talk about all the people that you've been in communication with throughout the years. Let's talk more about that. But y'all, without further ado, let's just jump right on into it, because you guys already know that we don't have a minute to spare. Now, we open up this episode with a few short scenes. We start off with Danielle at home. Her kids are being silly, making jokes. Then we cut to the Gorgas, and Joe Gorga says that he's planning a guys' night. He's invited everybody, including Paulie and Bill, but Paulie's wishy-washy, and Bill came up with an excuse saying that he has surgery that night, so he's unsure if he can make it. Now, Joe Gorga calls out the BS. He's like, I know good and damn well that Bill does not have a surgery that night. He's just, for some reason, he doesn't want to come, but I'm not believing it. And sure enough, we saw that Bill was right at Louie's guys' night, but we'll talk more about that later. And now we see a cute scene with Rachel Fuda at home, and I'm not going to hold you. It was a beautiful scene, very touching, but I don't have any thoughts other than I'm happy to hear that Giuliana, her one-year-old daughter, is doing a lot better. Because remember, a few episodes ago, we found out that her daughter was struggling with her speech, and she had to get surgery for it, and things are a lot better. We see her say a few words, she's walking, Rachel's emotional, and again, a very touching scene, but I don't have too much to add. Now, if we could get Bravo to stop putting Jen Aiden on our screens, that would be great. But unfortunately, here we are. So we see Jen and Bill on the couch, they're just talking, and Jen proceeds to tell Bill all about Rachel Fuda's pajama party the other night. So she says that Danielle was the last to arrive and how she pretty much ignored Danielle the whole night, but she did have a good time with the girls. Now I said, hold on, Danielle lives rent-free in your head? Because why is that the first thing that comes out of your mouth? And just so we're clear, Danielle was ignoring you the whole night. So please don't act like you were the one who was giving her the cold shoulder when that's not the case. Danielle made sure not to speak to you. I just get so irritated with Jen. I'm praying to God that this is her last season. And from what Andy Cohen is saying about he wants a reboot and he wants fresh faces on Jersey, I think that Jen Aiden will be done after this season, and I'm going to thank God in advance. So now she goes on to say how they talked about sex, and she might have told the girls too much about how she milks his prostate. So Bill's being silly. He's like, oh my gosh, oh no, I don't want to hear this. And it's no shade, but I still don't believe that they have any type of a sex life, because the way Bill looks like he can't stand to be around her, so I don't even believe that she's milking anything, but I digress. So now Jen switches topics and she says, oh, by the way, I heard that Joe Gorga texted you about what? And Bill says, oh yeah, the other day, Joe Gorga texted all the husbands. He wants us all to get together for a guy's night at his house, and he invited everybody except Louie. Now, Bill, are you surprised? You know the beef between both families, so why are you acting like you expected Louie to get an invitation? So Bill says that he told Joe Gorga that he won't be able to make it because he has a surgery that night, but he will be going to Louie's guys' night. So Jen's curious to know who's going to Louie's, and Bill says, well, myself, Paulie, Nate said that he had another event, and of course, you have Jen Aiden being hateful yet again, and she jumps in and says, well, honestly, when it comes to Nate, he's a bitch boy. And I said, girl, what? What are you talking about? Girl, how is Nate a bitch boy? You could only dream to have a husband who has your back. Every time Bill is around you and you get into it with somebody, he just stands there looking like a deer in headlights. Bill always looks annoyed by you. He never has your back. He never defends you. But yeah, you want to call Nate a man who actually rides for his wife? You want to call him a bitch boy? I think that Jen is very triggered, especially by the women on this cast who have good husbands. It's not lost on me that she has issues with Danielle and Melissa. So now Jen Aiden tells Bill about the retreat that Dolores and Jen Fessler are both planning and how the purpose of this trip is to find healing amongst the group. So she says that she has no desire to speak to Danielle unless Danielle speaks to her first. Now I said, wait, what? Do you not remember that you're the one who started this fight? You put hands on her. She clocked you upside your head, rightfully so, and now you want to act as if you're the victim. Again, I cannot stand Jennifer Aiden. And she has the same school of thought as her friend, Teresa Giudice, where they take no ownership whatsoever. But we close out this scene with Jen Aiden saying that if by any chance this trip inspires Danielle to find some kindness, she's willing to move on. And then she says, but honestly, I don't think that Danielle is capable of doing that. Well, we don't think that you're capable of taking ownership of what you've done. Again, I think that Jen Aiden is the definition of a loser, and this needs to be her last season on this show. I have a quick theory. I believe that if and when Jen Aiden is fired from this show, I will not be surprised if her and Bill end up getting divorced. I could really see it because he looks miserable right now on camera. I can only imagine how he'll be when she's off this show. Because again, he looks miserable, and him just sitting there listening to her go on, acting like she's not the one in the wrong, he just looked like, oh my gosh, get me out of here. So now we jump on over to Dolores. She's at home and she's on FaceTime with Jen Fessler, and Jen Fessler is asking her if she's found a house yet. So Dolores says, I actually did. It's the perfect house in the Berkshires. It's 7 bedrooms and there's a guest house with 2 bedrooms. So she says that she's really pumped because with all the drama in the group, she'll have Jen Aiden and Teresa in the guest house because that way everybody will be happy. So Jen Fessler is happy to hear that. She says that couldn't be more perfect. And now Dolores says that she just wants to get through this trip in one piece. And now we find out that Teresa still hasn't confirmed whether she's going to go on the trip or not, but Dolores does think that she'll show up because she knows how Teresa is, and Teresa is not somebody who wants other people to feel like they got the best of her. So Dolores continues on with how she's so nervous about this retreat and how she just wants everybody to at least acknowledge the friendships that they used to have amongst the group. It's a bit delusional for Dolores to think that this group can come together. Too much has happened. A fight has already broken out. People have gotten private investigators involved. People's children have been threatened. We've had sit-down conversations go left. We're at the point of no return. This group flat out hates each other. So it's delusional to think that they can come together and be cordial. That ship has sailed. So again, Dolores, I need you to stop with all this, oh, well, if we can get to a cordial place, it's not going to happen. And when you have people like Jen, Aiden, and Teresa in this group, 2 people who cannot take ownership about anything, do you honestly expect there to be peace? So let's stop playing ourselves. So now Jen Fessler jumps in and says how sad it is, and Dolores says it is sad. Then she says that she's not expecting everybody to be friends with each other, but at least speak their piece and be cordial. Again, this group is too far gone. There is none of that being cordial or trying to exchange pleasantries. They're past that. So Dolores is going over all the activities that she has planned. She says that they're going to cook dinner together. Then there's a fire pit. There's going to be team building and trust exercises. I said, Dolores, are you okay? In what world do you think that this group is going to come together to do team building and do trust exercises? Like, are we serious right now? And the way I rolled my eyes when Dolores went on to say that she has it packed with activities so that way they take their minds off of how much they hate each other. I said, girl, these women are well aware of how much they hate each other. So please do not feel like all these activities are going to have them forgetting that. This whole entire trip sounds like a complete flop. So Dolores goes on to say that she's well aware that they're most likely not going to Goombaya. And Jen Fessler was me. She said, girl, Goombaya? Do you mean Kumbaya? And now we close out the scene with Dolores saying that they either get it right at this retreat or else their friend group that they know is all over. Now, Dolores, I don't know what show you've been watching, but this friend group eroded 2 seasons ago. Honestly, since Louie came in the picture, the only solution for Jersey is a reboot. And I'm glad that Andy seems to be on board because there's nothing else to say. There's nowhere else to go. I don't want to keep watching people who just can't stand each other. This isn't fun. So we jump to the next scene with Margaret and Jen Fessler meeting up for lunch. Now, Jen Fessler is me because when they sat down, there was a bee that kept buzzing around her. And I am deathly afraid of bees. Every time I see one in my vicinity, I'm going in the opposite direction. Like, me and bees don't get along, okay? So when she was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. The last time we were out, I got stung. Like, no ma'am. And I said, Jen, you and I are right here because I'm also very afraid too. So now they're making small talk. Jen Fessler is asking about Joe. And Margaret shares that he has yet to get his biopsy done, but he has gotten other tests done, like an MRI. And she says, honestly, I'm trying not to think about it. I'm trying not to worry. So Jen Fessler assures Margaret that it's all going to work out, it's going to be okay, and that Joe is going to be fine. So now she says, look, girl, I have to tell you something. And the other day, Teresa called me up inviting me to her house. She's going to have her lawyer over. Apparently, she's found some court filings pertaining to you, and she wants us over to hear the truth. Margaret was not here for it. She's like, what court findings? Then she goes on to say that they're both liars and that this is the same lawyer who was with her when she went to jail. And Margaret's confessional shade was flawless. You don't understand how loud I was yelling when she said, her attorney is next to a meth clinic in Atlantic City. My attorney is on Madison Avenue. I said, whack her again.
I'm just scoot on over and let you whack him. Get him again. Get him for me.
Margaret was pissed. She says my attorney would never hold court to discredit somebody. Then she goes on to say that it's disgusting that anybody in this group would go and listen to an attorney sit around and bash her. And she's like, who else did she invite? So Jen Fessler says, well, me, Jackie, I think Dolores. And Margaret says, Dolores, let me call her up right now. So Margaret whips her phone out, calls Dolores, and before Dolores can even say, hey, how are you? Margaret starts off by saying, I'm really pissed off right now. What kind of person throws an event to talk about me with their attorney? So of course, since Dolores insists on playing Switzerland, she never wants to pick a side. She's making all these excuses for Teresa, and she says, well, it's just to hear her out. It's not about bashing you. And Margaret's like, no, anybody engaging in this negativity is not correct. Then she goes on to say that it's time for people to stand up for what's right, and this isn't right. Then she lets Dolores know how disappointed she is, and then she says, you know what? I see you're eating. I'm irritated. I'll call you later. So she hangs up the phone, and now she calls up Danielle. So Danielle says that she has no idea what's going to be said, but all she knows is that it's about the court case and that's it. So now Margaret ends the call with Danielle, and now she looks right at Jen Fessler and she's like, are you going to that thing on Thursday? And Jen Fessler says, you know what? I'm going to text her right now and say, I can't do this. I have to support Margaret. I'm not going to go. So we actually see Jen Fessler take her phone out and take a stand and not play neutral. She sends Teresa a text saying, hey, Teresa, thanks for the invite, but I can't go. It's not fair to Margaret. It's not right. It's nice to see Jen Fessler actually get a backbone and stick up for her friend. It's about damn time. So now we see that same bee come back, and Jen Fessler says, you know what? I'm done. I'll see you later, but I'm not going to sit up here and almost get stung by this bee. Like, I'm good. Now, Jen Fessler, I get it, but that burger that you ordered looked delicious. My mouth was watering. So I would have had them wrap my burger up to go, because no way I'm gonna sit there and let that burger go to waste. So now we jump over to Joe Gorga having his guys' night. Now remember, he's invited everybody except for Louie, but the only guys coming are Margaret's husband, Joe B., John Fuda, Frank Catania, and Jen Fessler's husband, Jeff. So we know that Bill and Polly are going to the Ops house, aka Louie and Teresa's. So for Joe Gorga's guys' night, he had a whole staff there, and when I tell y'all, those steaks looked phenomenal. I'm salivating just talking about it, but the food at Joe Gorga's for his guys' night, chef's kiss. So we see Joe Bonino arrive, and then we see John Fuda arrive next, and John Fuda's sense of humor is everything, because the way he showed up in pajamas, he said, I came here in pajamas to make you feel more at ease. And we all know what he's referring to. He's referring to how creepy Louie was last season when Louie revealed that he would wear Teresa and Joe's dad's pajamas to make Teresa's daughters feel comfortable. And we were all like, wait, what? So John Fuda was throwing some shade towards Louie. Now, mind you, we see the parallel scene with Louie at home getting ready for his guys' night. Now, off rip, I'd rather be at Joe Gorga's than Louie's, because Joe Gorga's actually looked fun and the food looked 10 times better. It's no shade, but Louie's guys' night was not doing it for me. He has his son there for the guys' night. His dad is there. And I'm like, what kind of guys' night is this? But again, I guess. And does anybody notice how Louie always talks like a used car salesman? He just always tries to sound so fake deep. He's in the kitchen and he's like, hey, Dad, so for the guys' night, it's all about us just being easy. It's about us just being free because we all work so hard. And I'm like, you're not a motivational speaker. Why can't you ever just talk normally? Like, what's all this fluff? What's all this, I'm just such a good guy? It's clear that Louie is trying to convince us that he's not who we think he is, even though the evidence is surrounding him that he is indeed who we suspect him to be. And I'm gonna just leave it right there. Again, Teresa, you made a grave mistake not signing a prenup. So now Teresa comes into the kitchen, and Teresa and Louie can never have fun and lighthearted conversation. Every time they're in a scene together, it's always about Margaret and trying to expose her. I'm like, when do you rest? Every conversation is about who you hate, who you're trying to expose, who you're trying to get back at. You're not tired? So she's like, hey, babe, so just so you know, Fessler texted me earlier today, and she obviously told Margaret about our meeting on Thursday. So Margaret convinced her not to go because she just texted me that she won't be coming. So she goes on to say that it's not about bashing Margaret, it's about the facts. And I said, are you sure about that? Because you've been saying all season how you can't wait to expose Margaret for the awful person that she is. So it does sound like you want to bash her. But again, what do I know? So now she turns to her father-in-law and she's like, hey, Dad, so there's this person who's trying to attack me and Louie. And I said, girl, shut up, telling your father-in-law all these lies. But she's still bending her father-in-law's ear about how Margaret has been hurting her and Louie for 3 years now, and she can't wait for the truth to come out. And then you have her father-in-law saying, well, there's an old saying about how the dirt always rises to the top. And I said, okay. I said, oh my gosh, can we please just skip past Teresa and Louie because I'm tired. And I rolled my eyes so hard. I said, okay, girl, you're just determined to paint yourself as the ultimate victim when you're not. Also, somebody made a great point on Twitter about how this show took an even darker turn after Teresa met Louie. And I have to agree. I think that ever since Teresa met him and he became a part of the show, things have really gone left. I think that he has a very sinister energy, and Teresa is becoming even more insufferable because she wants to prove to all of us that she made the right decision marrying this man who has a lot of red flags. I think it's really sad that Teresa is low-key jeopardizing her spot on this show because of Louie and all these antics. Because again, this show has gone left. It's not enjoyable anymore. Yes, this season has been fairly entertaining, but there still is such a dark energy throughout this season. The fact that it's so divided, people flat out hate each other, it's like Potomac on steroids. So I just feel like, again, there's something to be said that Louie has entered the picture and things have taken such a drastic turn. And despite people thinking that Margaret is just so messy, at the end of the day, she really did have concern about Louie and his intentions when it came to Teresa. And Teresa is mad at the wrong person. She still wants to put this blame on Margaret about, oh, well, this wouldn't have been out there had Margaret not said anything. Girl, are you dumb? The minute you join the reality TV arena, all of your business, all your skeletons are out the closet. It was going to come out regardless of Margaret saying anything or not. So back at the Gorgas, Joe Bonino gets a call from Margaret, and she's like, hey, babe, you won't believe what just happened. Me and Jen Fester went out for lunch, and she told me that Teresa invited her and the other ladies to the house because her lawyer, James Leonard, is going to sit down and talk about some court filings that they found with me involved. So Joe B is like, wait, what? How are you involved in all this? And Margaret's like, I don't know, I could care less. But anyhow, Teresa told Dolores that they've spent over $400,000 on the attorney. Joe Bonino has Margaret on speaker, so John Fuda and Joe Gorga are listening into the conversation. So Joe Gorga's like, wait, what? They did not spend $400,000 on any attorney. That's a lie. And now we have John Fuda saying that they're both train wrecks and the truth will come out soon. And I agree. I think that Teresa and Louie are both lost causes, and it's really sad to see them go out like this. And the fact that they've already spent $400,000 on this court case, that's a lot. And Teresa, you need to be a bit more frugal, seeing that Andy might reboot this show and fire everybody. So this is not the time to be spending so frivolously on attorneys and legal fees, because come next year, this show might be gone. So we see Joe Bonino get off the phone, and now we see Frank Catania and Jen Fester's husband Jeff arrive. So now they walk to the bar, they're taking shots, and now Frank Catania reveals that Louie invited him to his guys' night. So they walk to the bar, they're taking shots, and now Frank Catania reveals that Louie actually invited him to his guys' night. So Joe Gorga's like, let me ask you a question man to man. Would you ever hang out with a scumbag? And Frank at first says that he wouldn't hang out with a scumbag, and then he tries to deflect and make a joke about it. And I said, oh my gosh, no wonder you and Dolores used to be married, because you both try to play neutral. You guys are both Switzerland. So obviously Joe Gorga is triggered because every time Louie and Teresa get brought up, he always starts spiraling. And I get it, because Teresa is his sister. He's obviously not happy about what's happened between them. And he says, unfortunately, Bill Aiden has been sucked into that cult. And now Joe continues on by saying that he only knew Louie 2 months before Louie screwed him over. And we all remember what he's referring to. Last season, we found out that Louie and Joe Gorga were going to go half on a toaster oven business. The business, for some reason, tanked, and there were a lot of hurt feelings. Money was lost. Just a mess. Then he goes on to say that he moved past that, but Louie kept screwing him again and again. And now we see Joe Gorga in his confessional, and he pretty much says that Louie entered this family and destroyed it. And I have to agree. I think that Louie is the main reason right now why Teresa and Joe are at odds. Honestly, there's been drama before Louie ever came into the picture, but I do feel that Louie has a very dark energy, and I almost get the impression that Louie wanted this to happen because he wants Teresa to only be with him. And when Joe Gorga went on to say that Louie is 49 with a restraining order and how it's weird, I agree. I think that Louie's whole background is a bit bizarre. Everybody can't be wrong about this man. I just find it comical that Teresa wants to act like the world is out to get Louie and it's not true. Everybody can't be lying on him, sis. So now we cut right back to Louie at his guys' night. Bill and Polly have arrived. And is it just me, or does Bill look a bit sad that he's not at Joe Gorga's? I have always felt like Bill has a lot of fun with Joe Gorga. They really connected. He really did view Joe Gorga as one of his best friends. And I think that he's upset that because things are so bad between his wife and Melissa and Joe Gorga, he is now obligated to spend time with Teresa and Louie, even though he'd rather be with Joe and Melissa. So they arrive, and now Louie takes them all down to his home studio where he wants them all to record devotionals to their wives before they go on the retreat. So I was just like, wait, what? Even Louie's dad looked bored. He was like, are you serious? If I had to pick who I wanted to spend time with, I'm going with Joe Gorga all the way. I guess Bill was joking because he puts this high voice on and he's like, hi, sweetheart, I love you. And then he makes these kissy noises into the mic. I was weirded out by the whole thing. I said, what kind of guys' night is this? And once again, Bill looked like I picked the wrong guys' night. I should have went over to Joe Gorga's. And the stark difference between the guys' nights was hilarious because we flip back to Joe Gorga's and they're all taking bone marrow shots. And now they go inside to play poker. And as they're about to play, John Fuda is visibly ill. He's like, guys, I'm out. I think I had an allergic reaction. So he gets up, goes to the bathroom. Joe Gorga runs to give him some ice. And now you have Joe Benigno run over. And I thought it was so cute because Joe Benigno was like a concerned dad. He was like, oh my gosh, John, you need to go to the hospital. John Fuda's like, oh no, I'm good. I need to do some push-ups. That's it. I'll be fine. And Joe Benigno was like, oh no, you can't breathe. Your lips have swollen. Like, it's time to go to the hospital. We now see Joe Benigno walk to the producers and he's like, please call 911, call an ambulance. He needs to go to the hospital like right now. So the producers call an ambulance and as they're on their way, we see Melissa come downstairs. She's like, what's happening? What's going on? Joe Benigno tells her that John Fuda had an allergic reaction and how they're getting the paramedics. So now she walks in to check on John Fuda and all of a sudden we see Joe Gorga whip it out and start peeing. I was like, Joe, all these bathrooms in this gorgeous house, you have to use this bathroom that John Fuda's in and start peeing. Like, really? So now the paramedics finally come and Joe Benigno is like, he needs oxygen. He can't breathe. He's about to go into shock. Give him some oxygen right now. So they give him some oxygen and Joe Benigno is like, look, just sit there, take the oxygen and be quiet. And that's what a good friend does because Joe Benigno was making sure that his friend stayed alive. I said, I love it. He was really on top of it. So now the paramedics check his vitals, his blood pressure, and then they tell John that he needs some Benadryl and he'll be okay. So before they leave, they tell John that if he has any other issues to call and they'll come back again. So now we close out the scene with Joe Gorga offering the paramedics some steaks. And he's like, no, stay. I want you guys to have some food. Like, enjoy yourselves. We just want to say thank you for all your help. And we see the paramedics take them up on their offer and they stay to eat some steak. And I thought that was a very sweet gesture. And those steaks looked amazing. And I don't think that anybody would have turned that down. I also thought it was funny when Frank Catania pretended like he was calling Louie. And he said, hey, Louie, John Fuda almost died over here. Now top that. And I said, but despite all that happening, Joe Gorga's guys' night was 10 times better than Louie's guys' night. So now we jump over to Dolores. It's the next day, and she's at home, or should I say Paulie's home, and it's no shade, but Dolores' name is not on that townhouse. Let's just call a spade a spade. But anyway, she drops the news that the house that she secured in the Berkshires for their girls' retreat, that house has burned to the ground. And Dolores is freaking out. She's like, what am I going to do now? Where are we going to stay? That house was perfect. And this has to be one of the few times where I agreed with Paulie, because he said, well, what if that's a sign? And Dolores says, yeah, you might be right. It could be an omen after what happened yesterday. So now she tells Paulie about the phone call that she received from Margaret the other day. Margaret called her up screaming about why is she going to Teresa's house to hear Teresa bash her. So Dolores says that nothing that Teresa tells her is going to change how she feels about Margaret, and she's only going because she wants to hear both of her friends out. I said, Dolores, I'm so sick and tired of you with this whole Switzerland, I'm neutral. When do you ever get a backbone and say, you know what, Teresa, you're wrong? So now Dolores changes the topic, and she wants to know, how was Paulie's night at Louie's? So she's asking if Bill got drunk, and Paulie says, actually, none of us got drunk. So she's like, really? Like, what did you guys do? So Paulie shares that they all recorded these devotionals for all their women. And she's like, oh, you did? Like, what did you say? So now you have Paulie getting all shy, and he's like, well, you'll have to hear it when we get it. And honestly, Paulie's devotional wasn't that grand. All he said was, Dolores, thank you for having my back. I love you. That was it. Also, I don't know what kind of devotional you can give somebody when you're still legally married to somebody else. But hey, Dolores obviously does not care, so if she likes it, then so be it. So now it's the big day of Teresa's big reveal of Margaret, which ended up being a complete flop, but we'll get to that in a minute. So Teresa's in the kitchen, she's preparing her spread for the ladies, and she is just so excited because she cannot wait to expose Margaret. So it wouldn't be a Teresa scene without Gia and Louie. And I said, oh my gosh, must they be in every single scene with Teresa? So we see Teresa's lawyer, James Leonard, arrive, and he says that he loves this family and anything he can do to help, he'll be there. So Teresa says that she's just so happy that he's here because she wants everybody to hear it out of his mouth. So we see Danielle arrive first, and she says that she just wants to hear what Margaret did, because the way Teresa has been hyping this up, somebody passed her the popcorn. And I said, girl, make sure you get extra butter on your popcorn for the disappointment when you realize that Teresa's receipts are a complete joke. So now desperate Jackie arrives next, and you can tell that she is just in her glee that she is at Teresa's house for a second time, because we all know how thirsty Jackie is for Teresa's friendship. And once again, Jackie, I really hope you're embarrassed by how silly and how desperate and how thirsty you've looked all season long. This was a pathetic display, and you should feel embarrassed. So now we see Dolores arrive next, and when Dolores came, Teresa had just gone to another room, and so Dolores turns to Gia and she's like, where's your mom? I just want your mom to calm down and relax because this is not the Teresa that I know. I need her to calm down. So Gia's like, I know, she's so stressed. You should hear her. She lost her voice. I said, Teresa is stressing herself about nothing. She just wants the attention. She wants to feel like she has so much going on, when in all reality, this isn't her fight. This is Louie's fight. And also, Teresa brought this stress on herself, marrying a man with all these issues and a sketchy background. Now, did anybody hear Louie say that he has to leave to go to work? And I said, Louie, inquiring minds would like to know, what do you do for work? Where is your office building? Do you make money? His work consists of draining Teresa's pockets dry. That really isn't funny. That's actually sad when you think about it. But Teresa, we've been trying to tell you, but you don't want to listen, so here we are. So now Jen Aiden is the last to arrive, and Danielle is already irritated. Her facial expression said it all, and I said, same here, girl, same here, because every time Jen Aiden comes on the screen, I also get annoyed too. So we are right here. So Teresa sits down and thanks them all for coming. And she says, I just want to say I really appreciate the support. And of course, she points out that Danielle and Jen Aiden are in the same room and she appreciates them. And Jen Aiden says, of course, babe, we're all adults. Nothing's going to happen. We're fine. So now Teresa's lawyer, James Leonard, takes the floor and he says, I've been with Teresa's family for 9 years. I was with her when she went to jail, and I have to say, she was less stressed when she went to jail than she has been for these last several months. So he continues on by saying that there's someone in Louie's past who keeps making life very hard for him. And Jen Aiden interrupts and she says, his ex? And James Leonard says, well, we don't want to talk about this person due to legal problems, but yes, this whole issue has been going on way before Teresa and Louie even met. Now, was it just me, but I felt like Jen Aiden was being messy by asking the lawyer if that's his ex, because I said, if you claim to be Teresa's best friend, then you should know the whole situation. And if you know that you can't say Louie's ex's name, you can't talk about her, mention her, why would you purposely say, oh, his ex? It just feels like Jen Aiden tries to be messy, but she does it in a very subtle way, but we can all see right through it. I did not understand the logic in her asking, oh, is that his ex? When she knows damn well that, yes, this is Louie's ex that they're talking about. So now we see a confessional from Jackie, and she says that this whole entire case is confusing because Louie and his ex both have gag orders on each other. Neither one of them can say each other's names. So the lawyer continues on by saying that sometime in 2021, this individual reached out to Margaret, and then in November of 2021, the lawyer who was representing Louie subpoenaed Margaret to ask if she was in communication with this individual. So we find out that Margaret refused to come to court, and I said I would have done the same thing too. Don't rope me into all this foolishness, leave me alone. So James Leonard goes on to add that this person had plans to expose Teresa and Louie based on the information that they were getting from another individual. So now Teresa interrupts and she's like, guys, your head is about to spin when you hear this. Louie's not allowed to say her name. She can't say Louie's name. This person gets all of her information from Margaret. And now James Leonard jumps back in and says that Margaret is getting information about Teresa and Louie and is trying to hurt them. So everybody's just staring at Teresa and her lawyer, James Leonard, and they were looking like, you called us to your house for this stale-ass tea. Are you serious? Nobody was blown away. And I thought it was hilarious that Teresa really thought that she had this big gotcha moment. This whole entire sit-down was a bust. And you know she paid her lawyer a nice coin for him to come over and give the girls nothing. I said, Teresa, you should really feel embarrassed because this did not eat the way you thought. And what's really funny to me is the fact that Teresa is such a hypocrite. We've seen Teresa link up with people's ops, try to get dirt on people to expose them and embarrass them. Weren't her and Jen Aiden snooping around trying to dig up information about Jackie's husband, Evan, when all those cheating rumors came out a few seasons ago? Remember that? Let's not act like Teresa's not gotten her hands dirty trying to expose other people on this cast at various points. So miss me with all this, oh, Margaret is so low down, she's trying to get dirt. Let's talk about how your husband threatened her child. Why are we forgetting that? Why are we glossing over that fact? It's so mind-boggling that Teresa feels like she can do what she wants, and then the minute somebody else wants to get back and retaliate, now she's angry, now she's the victim. No, ma'am. And I was so happy that Dolores said, this is not jaw-dropping information. Teresa has been suspecting this for years. She's questioned Margaret about this. They play the flashbacks of Teresa accusing Margaret of being behind all this. And I said, girl, again, you wasted everybody's time for this whack-ass scene with these whack-ass receipts that prove nothing. So now Danielle turns to Jackie and she's like, Jackie, did Margaret ever tell you any of this? And Jackie says, no, I never heard any of this. She didn't tell me this. And of course, Jen Aiden's hateful self has to interrupt. And she's like, Margaret got angry at me when I befriended her ex-best friend Laura, and I stopped because that's not a nice thing to do, but she's such a hypocrite. And I love how Danielle called out the hypocrisy in her confessional. She says, hold up. Teresa and Jen Aiden were both trying to befriend Laura to get information on Margaret. Isn't that the same thing that they're accusing Margaret of doing? And I said, exactly. Again, when it comes to Teresa, she feels like the rules apply to everybody else and not her. And also, I feel no ways about Margaret in communication at one point with Louie's ex, because when you threaten somebody's child, you don't really get a say-so in how they respond back. So again, I don't really feel any ways about Margaret talking to Louie's ex at one point. It is what it is, because Teresa has done the same thing to other people at various times on this show. So after Teresa's big reveal flopped, we see somebody at the door, and everybody can see him on the security cameras. And Gia's like, who is that? He looks really creepy. Danielle notices that there are flowers in his hand, and they're funeral flowers. So Danielle's like, are those funeral flowers? Did somebody pass away? So we get one of the most iconic moments in Housewives history. Teresa opens up that door, and the delivery man says, these are for you. And Teresa's like, who are these from? So she reads the card, and it says, for Teresa and James Leonard, for your loss of dignity, love, 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 Margaret. If you guys could have heard the scream that escaped my lips, I was absolutely gagged. Margaret and those funeral flowers sent me over the edge. I said, oh my gosh. So Teresa is pissed. So she's like, I don't want them. Return to sender. Tell her to stick these flowers up her ass. I don't want them. Get them out of my face.
Refuse it. Tell her to stick it up her ass. Take it off my property.
All right.
That was from Margaret.
What did she say?
Like a funeral thing. Yeah.
Addressed to who?
Wait, addressed to who?
To two of us.
Did it say anything on it?
Yeah, I didn't even read the whole thing.
So she slams the door, and now she tells everybody what just happened. She says, those were funeral flowers from Margaret. And did you guys catch everybody's facial expressions? They were all trying not to laugh, especially Danielle. Danielle was loving every piece of the shade, because in her confessional, she says, oh my gosh, that was the most gangster move I have ever seen. Like, I'm living. I said, exactly. You could say what you want, but Teresa could never be that clever. So Teresa's trying to save face, and she says, I love it because she got caught, so now she's scrambling. And I said, no, dear, she's not scrambling at all. The only one who's scrambling is you. So now Teresa's lawyer finally leaves, and now Danielle wants to know, how are they going to be able to be on this trip together? So Dolores says, well, we're not going. So they're like, wait, what happened? Dolores breaks the news that the house burnt down, so that's a wrap. So Teresa starts screaming. She's like, oh my gosh, that's a sign. And now Jen Aiden says that it's divine intervention. And now you have Teresa saying that it's an omen, it's an omen. And Danielle was like, you mean an omen? I said, girl, shut up. Can't even string a sentence together. Talking about an omen, like what? So since they won't be going on this trip, Dolores says that she wants to plan a dinner because she still wants everybody to get whatever they have to say off of their chest, and she wants them all to hash it out. And now you have Teresa saying, well, honestly, I got my closure today. And Dolores lets her know that it's not about you, Teresa. There are other people in this group who have issues with each other, so I want to have the dinner for them. So that's where we end this episode, and now we see that next week is the finale. Now, with the trip being canceled because the house burnt down, I honestly do feel like it was divine intervention, because a group trip with everybody on this cast would be a disaster. I don't think it's safe for them to be on a group trip together. I don't. And when you have people who hate and despise each other this much, the only thing that's going to happen when they're together is a fight. And I was watching Melissa Gorga when she was on Watch What Happens Live on Sunday, and she even said that she thinks that it was for the best that they were unable to go because the hate in the group was too much. And the way the finale panned out, she says that it's the best thing that there was no group trip, because it would have been more of the same, more fighting, more awful words being exchanged. So yeah, a group trip not happening was the best thing for this group. And again, it's sad that it's gotten so dark. We don't watch these shows to be emotionally and mentally drained. We watch these shows for some lighthearted entertainment, to watch some fun shade being exchanged, some cute vacations, and that's it. And I'm happy that Andy has acknowledged that it's time for a reboot when it comes to Jersey. It's time to let it go. It's time for a new start. And I think that's honestly the best idea for Jersey. Scrap it all, start fresh, and let's call it a day. Because we cannot go on like this. But I'll tell you one thing, if Andy ends up firing everybody and starting fresh, I'll bet you guys money that everybody on this cast will be willing to work things out and get along for season 16. But you're making $1.5, $2 million for only 3 months of work, and that's the bulk of your income, you'll be willing to make up with people who you said you would never talk to again. But guys, that was my recap. Thank you all so much for watching. For all my podcast listeners, thank you so much for listening. And you already know what to do. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all later. Bye.